Prepare for a true revolution.
Actually, you can prove God exists.
Questioning tradition, because what you've been taught isn't always true.
The truth will set you.
Welcome to Truth Revolution. I am Dave. With me is Pastor Jeff of Revolution Church, and this is where faith and reason coexist.
Aliens, science, the Earth, an alien megastructure, and possibly Sodom and Gomorrah.
Wow, that's a lot.
All stuff we're going to talk about today because they've discovered a lot of stuff in this last week, and so...
Wait a minute.
What?
We have half an hour.
We've got half an hour. We're going to spend like 30 seconds on each one of these things and spend the rest of the time talking about how attractive I am.
That'll be a short conversation, too.
This is indeed a disturbing universe.
Okay, so let's get in here because they say they have found Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
This is interesting.
Yeah, that's a mind blower. You know, the thing is that constantly archaeology is digging up stuff that proves that, hey, man, the Bible is correct.
Well, this has definitely happened in the past.
right.
I mean, we've seen gates from Jerusalem where people didn't know they existed. They were talked about in the Bible. They were dug up. They were found. We've seen things from the book of Daniel where it talks about who is king during a certain time. Archaeologists said, no, this can't have been true. Eventually, they find out it was true. This happens again and again.
Right.
So we have in the Bible this city of Sodom. You might remember the story of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
A very disturbed community. And supposedly they found this city of Sodom, the long-lost city. We're going to read kind of through an article, going to quote an article from geekchristian.com. We'll link to that on the website, truthrevolution.tv. By the way, if you're listening to the show, you need to get over to truthrevolution.tv. Make sure you sign up for the podcast, not just the regular show.
Right.
On the podcast, you get not only our half-hour show, but if we do anything extra, which we almost always do extra if there's a special guest on the show who knows more than us. But you also get access to all sorts of other stuff by going to the website. So you got to get out there. You can donate. You can ask questions. We also have a listener question we're going to try to get to today. But geekychristian.com points out that a lot of these news places, everything from Fox News to a whole bunch of them, are talking about Sodom. But they're saying, but... you know, it's not really.
Right.
There's no evidence for sure.
Right. People are a little bit hesitant to kind of stick their toe out there and say, yeah, this is definitely it.
Yes.
But, you know, all you got to do is look at the evidence.
Well, the Washington Post said, of course, while the reality of this city is not in doubt, there's little evidence that it's actually biblical Sodom. So this is what we're going to investigate.
Okay.
And the geekychristian.com puts up the 12 reasons that Sodom is Tal El Haman, this city that they found. So kind of neat. Number one says there's evidence the men at the site practice the kidnapping and of young boys.
Right.
So this is interesting because it kind of implies what the biblical account of Genesis was talking
exactly.
about. You want to read that Genesis 19 quote there?
Yeah, the biblical text says, now before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter surrounded the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we may know them carnally. Yeah,
that's right. So, and Dr. Collins, working on this site, has found some Minoan pottery at his site, indicating a possible Sodom-Minoan connection. There's research ongoing there, but his own words, he says, each boy at age 12 was taken as an eromones, a beloved, by a 22-year-old Erastus, a lover, to be raised for 8 years in a male-male sexual bond.
Oh.
It was usually initiated with a ceremonial kidnapping performed by a gang of ritual abductors, which, of course, this sounds very much like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where you get a gang of people showing up asking, hey, we want to kidnap the guest of Lot. Hey, let us have him, and we're showing up to do this. So this is one reason. A second reason, now this to me is the most interesting, and it kind of leads into...
You mean number two?
Number two. He gives 12 reasons, but number two and number 3 and 4 are the most interesting to me, that this might be the city of Sodom. Number 2, you want to read that headline?
Yeah, it says a meteor airburst explosion completely decimated the city that's buried there.
Okay, now if you're not familiar with airburst, it's not gonna mean anything. Like, what's that? Like a tornado fart? No. I don't really know.
Let us educate you.
So, an airburst is an extremely violent situation. So there is an event in Russia that happened years ago. I think it was
1903 or something like that.
1908, yeah,
Okay.
1908, and what it was, this thing exploded, and it caused an explosion that was more than 1,000 times greater than the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima.
Right.
And so when we're talking about an airburst, this is massive. Okay, this is massive. These things can decimate things. The article says there's convincing evidence that a significant airburst event destroyed the city. Trinitite was discovered on the back of a pottery shard. A zircon bubble, which can only form under extreme temperature, was also found.
Right. You think about that. A zircon bubble. You know, the now I don't know if zircon has anything to do with the hard substance they use, like cubic zirconia, but that's rock, and it's a bubble. Okay.
I know nothing about zircon, so I'm going to take your word for it.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking it is. But it's a bubble that was created out of something by extreme heat.
Extreme heat. That's
Yeah.
right. And a zircon bubble can only form under extreme temperature. There's typically nothing to burn at a gate area, yet its gate area is covered with 1/2 meter of thick black dark ash. Scattered human bones throughout the site suggest people were literally blown apart from this event.
Wow.
So you had some massive explosion, probably an airburst, similar to that one in Russia, in Siberia in 1908.
Right.
Now, the airburst could have created a vortex. This is what the article's saying, similar to what's described in the Bible. Because you get these vortexes that suck things up into the air and then
Right.
release things back down. And it talked about raining sulfur and raining ash in the Bible. Well, what happens with these vortexes is it creates a vacuum effect where the surface matter is sucked up in the atmosphere and it rains back down debris, ash, dirt, smoke. And you would have been able to see this for miles. So
Right.
if Lot and his family walked away, they were a day away, they would have looked back and seen ash and dust just raining down on the city.
Oh, that's just nuts.
Exactly what the Bible describes. In Genesis, it says the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah. The smoke of the land went up, the smoke of a furnace.
Right.
So interesting stuff there. But here's the most interesting thing. Okay, Lot's wife. The Bible
Yeah.
says.
Okay, now we're getting
Yeah,
to like
yeah,
the
this is-
fantastical stuff right
Yes,
here, right?
this is right. Like this is okay.
A pillar of salt. Come
What you
on.
just said, everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Right? A pillar of
Right.
salt, anyone?
Lot's
Come on
wife
now.
turned into salt. Get real,
Right.
you idiots.
Okay, now what's
All
really
right.
interesting is that up until I actually read this article,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, what if somebody, and somebody has asked me, well, what about that pillar of salt that Lot's wife turned into?
Yeah.
I had no explanation for it.
Well, I didn't have very much of an explanation either. I would have probably had to say, well, look, our cracked acronym, D for dialect, right? So sometimes you describe something you're seeing, something you don't understand. You're using metaphors. You're using words to describe something that is hard to comprehend. How
Right.
does my son describe a tornado? Yeah, a 4-year-old wouldn't be able to do that. So I probably would assume something like that, maybe even something supernatural.
Right.
But what we have here is
But, yeah.
this is awesome. Okay. It says, as they made their escape, they would have been walking along the shore of the Dead Sea,
Yeah.
which has one of the saltiest bodies of water in the world. That's important.
Yeah.
The look back was probably, and I'll just explain this. I mean, the look back, when it says that Lot's wife looked back, it doesn't necessarily mean that she just took a glance. I mean, we can use our cracked acronym here and go to the D for dialect. When someone looks back, it doesn't mean you turn around for 3 seconds. Like if I say that I went back to an old girlfriend, it doesn't mean that I took a drive and stopped at her house.
Right.
It means that I got into a relationship, right? And I'm just saying I went back. If Sodom's wife looked back, it might have meant she turned around
Right.
and she walked towards
Yeah.
it.
And see, God warned them about that. And
Yes.
and God wouldn't have made much sense for God to say, well, don't use your eyes and look back. He was more concerned about the heart.
Yes.
Where is your heart? Is your heart leading you back to Sodom?
Yeah, so
'Cause
probably
he didn't want that.
So probably she went back.
Right.
She probably went back there, and it says that she turned into a pillar of salt because she went back. Now, back to the science stuff. It's either way, when the airburst event happened, it brought 6,000 to 8,000 degrees Kelvin.
What is Kelvin, by the way, in Fahrenheit? Does anybody know? Do some quick math here real quick. Are you doing some math? He's doing math.
I'm gonna have to Google it to get the exact answer.
That's
here.
okay.
All
Because
right.
inquiring minds need to know.
All right, convert 8,000 degrees Kelvin to Fahrenheit. That would be...
Holy smokes.
Oh, is this right? That can't be... No. I just want to make sure I'm right here. Gonna double check my numbers.
Okay.
13,940 degrees Fahrenheit.
Ding, fries are done.
Okay. So 13,900 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
So this is really hot. And so if it splashed water, it would have covered the entire landscape with an incrustation of salt. Mm-hmm. Basically, you would get, if this airburst splashed water, shot water up in the air, blasted the sea out,
right,
would have evaporated all the water.
Right. And you basically would have been cooked in encrusted salt.
You would have, exactly. It's kind of like an old school fair food. Yeah. Like just dump a bunch of salt on top of a food and cook it at 13,000 degrees for 2 seconds.
Wow.
Well, this is what happened to Lot's wife. Mm-hmm. And so saying that she turned to salt doesn't seem so far out now, because she probably was completely covered in burnt salt. Her body turned to ash. There was nothing left. When they went back to see what happened, where was she? She's salt.
Right.
There's just salt here. That's all it is. So I find that to be really, really interesting. Okay, I tell you what. Why don't we take a pause on the Sodom story?
Okay.
And go ahead and answer a Bible contradiction right now.
Bible contradiction.
All right, Bible contradiction today. Hey, isn't really necessarily a Bible contradiction, but we are going to kind of review something.
Yes.
In a list of Bible contradictions on infidels.org, Jim Merritt writes, the Bible is riddled with repetitions and contradictions, things that Bible bangers would be quick to point out in anything that they want to criticize. Of various methods I've seen to explain these. Number one would be, this has to be taken metaphorically. In other words, what is written is not what is meant. I find this entertaining, especially for those who just decide what isn't to be taken as other than the absolute Word of God, which just happens to agree with the particular things that they happen to want.
Okay, so basically we want to review this because he's saying, oh.
We're looking for the back door.
So I show you a contradiction in your Bible, and you just say, that's a metaphor to get out of it.
Right.
And he says, in other words, what is written is not what is meant. Now, this is not true.
Right.
This is not true. It should be painfully obvious to pretty much anyone who reads the Bible honestly what is a metaphor and what is not a metaphor. We're not making stuff up. In Galatians 4:3, for example, and by the way, this is our acronym cracked.
You're right.
The D stands for dialect. Sometimes there's metaphors. Sometimes there's periphrasis. Sometimes there's analogies. Sometimes there's archetypes, whatever. In Galatians 4:3, it says, we were in slavery under the elemental spiritual forces of the world. Now, was Paul actually talking about being in slavery?
No.
No, he was speaking spiritually. Like, you weren't a slave to some spiritual being. Like, you weren't chained down and not allowed to get pay. No, but this guy's saying, oh, it's convenient, a spiritual response. No, it's not. This isn't convenient. This is just what he wrote.
Right.
This is what he wrote. When someone writes spiritually, we take it spiritually. When someone writes with metaphors, we take it metaphorically. Let me read you a quote, Dave.
Okay.
It was the best of times.
Oh.
It was the worst of times.
Okay.
It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was a season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. Well, which one was it? Was it the best of times or the worst of times?
That's a blatant contradiction.
That is a blatant contradiction. Charles Dickens, you've just contradicted yourself.
By the way,
Dickens.
yeah, that is a quote from A Tale of Two Cities, by the way.
Right. Look, he's using a literary utility. Any author can do this.
Right. And here's the thing. God created everything in the universe, so why wouldn't he be allowed to do the same thing?
God can do anything that we can do with words.
Right.
We can use metaphors. God can use metaphors. It kind of upsets me when people say that you have to take everything in the Bible like woodenly literal.
Right.
Because that is not how it was written. It's just not. Just read it for yourself.
Right. Let's not be upset. Let's just educate people.
That's right. I mean, when Jesus says gouge out your eye, he wasn't.
Right.
I hope you're not taking that too seriously.
Right.
You know, there's lots of metaphors, lots of analyses, lots of... we're just going to go into it further later. But all right, we're going to come back, talk more about Sodom and Gomorrah, talk about an alien superstructure that may have been found around a star, and about a science study about Earth being one of the most habitable planets in the universe.
Imagine that.
Be right back. TruthRevolution.tv.
Truth Revolution.
Hey, we're back.
Yes.
We're talking about Sodom. Sodom has been found.
All right, so we talked about Lot's wife turning to salt.
Right.
Talked about the type of morality that was in this city.
Talked about the air bursts.
That's right. Sodom, number 5. Sodom must have been the largest city in the area. Number 6, Genesis implies that Sodom had a wall for protection, and this site had an impressive one.
Right.
I'm not going to go into the details on this. We're going to link to the article if you want to know more. I shared
Yes.
my favorites.
Right.
Any of these you want to hit, Dave, that you really liked, or?
Well, no, I'd just like to point out the entire weight of all of the evidence. I mean, you could take one or two of these and say, you know what, maybe.
Yeah.
But you look at the entirety, and there's 12 of these.
Yeah.
You know, you can go read the article for yourself, and as you start out, it's like more and more as you read, it becomes fairly obvious that this is the site of ancient Sodom.
Yeah. I checked with Dr. Clay Jones. He's been a guest on our show a couple times. I said, hey, what do you think about this stuff? I showed him the article. He said he thought it was very interesting. He said, just don't be dogmatic about it.
Right.
And so I think that's the approach, we're going to take. I mean, it looks like, yeah, this is probably the deal.
Right, but let's be honest, our salvation doesn't hang on this.
No, it doesn't. And
Right.
if we find something that proves this is not the city, this is not that big of a deal. But it's really neat to see, wow, it looks like this could actually be it. I mean, it fits, even gives us a good scientific explanation of what might happen to Lot's wife. Number 7, the city is located in what looks like the disk of Jordan. If you look at a map, it's just in the exact place that the Bible describes this city is in the exact place that the Bible has described Sodom as being in.
Right.
As far as number 8, it's got good agricultural land, which Sodom was described as being well watered everywhere in the Bible, in Genesis 13. Number 9, Sodom and Gomorrah need to be east of Bethel and Ai, and Tel Haman is. And on. 10 and 11 both have to do with the geography of it. And number 12, this is kind of interesting.
Okay.
It says, people seem to be very spooked by what happened. You want to read this one?
Yeah, it says the city was very large and in an ideal location, yet the city remained abandoned for 700 years following its destruction. People thought the area was cursed. As a case in point, there's no mention of any people living in the area at the time of the Exodus, which is surprising for what was once the largest city in an ideal, lush location. No doubt they would have been spooked from the airburst event.
Yeah, so 700 years, people abandoned this location,
not going over there.
even though it was in an ideal place for
Right.
agriculture and a good city. Pretty interesting stuff. So.
I'm not getting back on that
I
horse.
ain't going there. I ain't going there. You crazy, Paul?
Right.
All right, so anyway, let's get into topic number 2 here. The search begins. A telescope array is now focusing on alien megastructure star. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have.
Oh, my goodness,
Oh,
Dave.
we got life somewhere else in the universe.
We found aliens.
Right.
We absolutely 100% found aliens without a doubt.
Don't you have a buzzer on that thing anymore? Thank you. I had to cool your jets.
Dang it. Okay, so last week, astronomers made a fascinating discovery, a strange pattern of light surrounding a distant star that cannot be explained. When a planet orbits a star, the star's brightness will usually only dip by 1%, but whatever's passing erratically by this star is causing it to dim by 22%.
And that's quite a bit,
That's big.
That's a lot. That's like 2,000%.
Yeah. In astronomical terms, turning our sun down 22% is pretty much impossible.
Right.
So something very, very big is out there. I should say, except for the fact that we have a moon and sometimes get an eclipse.
Right.
But something very, very big is out there. And scientists have offered up everything from a huge mass of comets to, even aliens as possible explanations.
Right.
So,
it's crazy because if we get to the subject, our next subject, it's like kind of like almost we do a flip flop here. But talking about this, I read this article sometime late last week, and it was interesting. It's almost like they make these headlines to grab your attention, and then you start reading it. It's like, oh.
Here's how headlines are developed, and I was teasing a journalist friend of mine about this on Facebook, but here's how headlines are developed, and here's how this story kind of happened. Scientists discovered this star that kind of flickered. So they put their telescopes on it. Why does it flicker? Oh, that's kind of weird. Wow, this thing dims a lot more than most stars. So they write a paper with, a whole bunch of different possible explanations, the benefits and the critiques of those explanations, why those explanations may or may not even work. And the reporter says, could it be aliens? And the reporter and the scientist says, well, I mean, it could.
Yeah, interview's over. I'm going to write my article.
Yeah, could be aliens, but that should probably be like the last thing we examine after we exhausted all other scientific possibilities. And then you get this new headline. Alien megastructure possibly discovered surrounding star.
Right.
Reporters find scientists admitting this. NASA investigating.
Right.
The search for extraterrestrial intelligence goes on. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa.
Let's put the brakes on.
The scientist is like, I didn't exactly say we found alien life,
Mm-hmm.
but this is kind of how things are written. So if you see this article, it's pretty cool.
Right.
It's especially cool that we don't know what's going on here.
Right.
But even SETI, okay, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, even SETI gives a warning. They is it Shostak? Is it Seth Shostak now, or who's running SETI? I can't remember.
I'm not sure who's running SETI right now.
Anyway, the guy who's running SETI basically says, "Yeah, we're gonna look into it. It's kind of neat, but don't cross your fingers. Like,
Right.
don't hold your breath."
Right.
As right, okay, it's right. He says it's probably almost definitely not aliens, but it's still in SETI's interest to investigate. That's what the article says.
Right. And that's responsible thinking right there.
Yeah,
You know?
that's good. I like that kind of thinking. So it's probably not aliens, but hey, let's check it out. That's cool. So, but that kind of brings us to our third topic,
Right.
which has to do with the Earth and something we've been talking about for years.
And nobody has listened to us until now.
Finally,
Right?
someone will listen to us. We aren't insane.
Right.
Okay, but this is actually put out by not theologians, but secular scientists. So, Dave, you want to give us a rough cut of this article here?
Yeah, it says the Earth is one of the universe's first, yes, first habitable planets, and most habitable planets are yet to be born. So, I mean, what they're saying is that we could be the very, if I might borrow the word, genesis of life in the universe.
I like how you fit that word in there.
Thank you.
That was pretty good. Yeah. You should be on radio.
Yeah.
Okay, so we might be the first or one of the first planets in the universe. You think, okay, the universe is almost 14 billion years old.
Right.
That's really old. But in terms of possible age, the universe really isn't all that old. This could be trillions of years old.
Right.
And a trillion is 1,000 billions. And we could have 1,000 billion, or 1,000 years, or 1,000 billions of years.
His math skills are eroding right in front of our eyes.
We could have 1,000 billions plus another 1,000 billions.
Right.
And we're only at 13.8 billion.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I'm just checking.
Yeah.
You seem to lose it there for a second.
We're like babies.
Right.
We're like babies, and we've got this Earth, this habitable planet. The article says research looked at data from Hubble and Kepler space telescopes and predicted that 92% of the universe's habitable planets have yet to be born.
Right. And it's kind of a weird statement, actually. Because how do you know? You know, how can you tell?
Well, they're looking at the expansion of the universe, they're looking at the rate of formation of stars, the amount of material that's available for stars to form.
Right.
Now, the rate of stars forming early on in the universe was very, very fast.
Yeah.
So in the first, 5, 6 billion, 7 billion years, stars are forming all the time. Stars aren't formed nearly as much now, and they'll be formed less often as it goes on. But they didn't use they use very little of the materials that are needed to create stars. So all this material to create stars is still out there. So we'll be able to create stars for 100 trillion years.
Right. So what you're saying is that our planet can actually look at other planets when they finally actually become of age and start their own, habitable planet. We can tell them to stay off of our lawn.
We'll be long gone by then. The sun is going to be gone on the order of millions of years. But these things are becoming in billions or trillions of years. What I find really interesting is they say how these future planets are going to be so far away from the genesis of the universe that they won't be able to figure out how the universe began. Think about this.
Yeah.
We exist at a not only physical location,
Right.
but a point in time that allows us to see the expansion of the universe and the beginning of the universe. Do you really think that's a coincidence?
I do not, because there's this thing that the Bible talks about that we call general revelation, where God actually shows Himself to us through creation.
Yes.
And if we can stand here and look back at the beginning of the universe, where they're talking about when these other planets come to light, or when they come about, they won't be able to see that. God has made sure that we're that people.
That's right. Hey, let's do a listener question before we finish the show today.
All right.
I got a question.
All right. I can pull up the listener question here.
This is a question we got on Facebook.
Okay.
So,
all right. It says, I don't know how to pray or to start, really. I really feel silly. I worry too much about what others think if they see or hear me pray. Do I have to speak out loud for Him to hear me? Silly question, I know.
not a silly question. We don't.
No such thing as a silly question, actually.
Yeah, we don't know how to pray unless we learn. You can pray in your head all you want, and God can hear you. Luke 5, verse 22 says this about Jesus.
Jesus knew what they were thinking.
Oh, pretty clear there, right? And Psalms 139:4.
Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely.
That's right. God totally knows what's going on in your heads. In fact, go ahead and read all of Psalm 139. It's great about how well God knows us.
Right.
Since He knows us so well, it's not like we have to worry about saying just the right word. We just need to be honest with Him, because prayer is about building a relationship with Him and honoring Him as much as it is asking for things. So, yeah, go into your room, close the door, and pray where no one hears you. If you're driving, just pray in your head. That's fine. God hears you. All right. Truth Revolution and Revolution Church. We'd love to have you out at Revolution Church.
Yes, 9 and 11 every Sunday.
And we're probably going to be starting a service Sunday night.
Right, 5:30.
So if you're an evening dweller, you want to check us out as well.
Evening dweller.
TruthRevolution.tv is our website. Revo.church is the church's website. That's Revo.church. We're in Salina, Kansas, right smack dab in the middle of the universe. And
it's a Salina-centrical universe?
Something like that. Yeah, Salina-centric universe. I like that. All right, TruthRevolution.tv. Send in your questions and comments. We'd love to hear from you.